Everyone inside the courthouse thought it was just another long morning, another case, another witness, another shuffle of papers and tired voices. No one imagined danger was already slipping through the cracks of the building, quiet and unseen. And absolutely no one expected the first warning to come from a German shepherd sitting calmly beside his handler. Officer Grant had just reached for the door to step outside when Rex, a trained K-9 with years of experience, suddenly blocked his path. Not barking, not panicking, just standing there, refusing to let him take a single step forward. People whispered. Perhaps the dog was stressed, or confused, or reacting to the tense courtroom atmosphere. But then, a trembling little girl tugged on Grant's vest and slipped something into his pocket, something that changed everything. It was a message no one saw coming, and it revealed a threat no one was prepared for. What happened next would shake the entire courthouse and prove that sometimes the quiet instincts of a loyal dog can save more lives than any bulletproof vest. This is the story of the day Rex refused to move, and why. The courthouse felt colder than usual that morning, as if every inch of marble, every echoing footstep, every whisper tucked in the corners had absorbed the weight of the case being tried. The air was tight, stretched thin by tension, guarded by uniformed officers at every doorway. Even the fluorescent lights seemed harsher, buzzing softly above a room filled with people who didn't dare breathe too loudly. Officer Grant stood near the witness stand, posture steady, but eyes alert, a presence shaped by years of duty. At his side, sitting perfectly still yet intensely aware of everything around him, was Rex, his German Shepherd K-9 partner. Rex's ears flicked at the smallest sound, his gaze sharp, sweeping across the room with instincts far beyond human perception. Though he appeared calm, there was a stiffness in the way he sat, a quiet readiness, as if he sensed something hidden beneath the surface. When the side door creaked open, all attention shifted. Emily stepped inside, a small girl, barely 10, dressed in a pale sweater 2 sizes too big, hands clutched tightly in front of her. She looked like a fragile shadow against the courtroom's harsh walls. Her eyes darted nervously toward the rows of strangers staring at her, tiny shoulders trembling at each step. The bailiff guided her toward the witness stand, but even with help, her legs wobbled as though the floor itself threatened to vanish beneath her feet. Rex's ears perked immediately. He didn't move, but his gaze locked onto her with an intensity Officer Grant recognized instantly. Something was wrong, something deeper than the usual fear of a child testifying. Rex sensed it the moment she entered, a kind of fear that didn't just shake her hands, rate et slow. It lived beneath her skin. "Easy, boy," Grant whispered. But Rex didn't relax. Instead, he inched half a step closer to the stand, tail low, muscles coiled with silent alertness. The defendant, seated across the room, lifted his eyes and stared at Emily. It was subtle, too subtle for most to notice. But there was a gleam there, something cold, something that made Emily's breath stutter and made Rex shift his weight forward. The man didn't speak. He merely tilted his head the slightest degree. But for a frightened child, that gesture alone was thunder. Emily's fingers twisted into knots. She swallowed, eyes glistening, trying to hold herself together as the judge encouraged her to speak. Her voice emerged barely audible. I... She couldn't finish. Officer Grant stepped a little closer. Not intrusive, but present. steady, grounding. "It's all right, Emily," he said softly, voice low and calm, a hand laid gently over chaos. Emily met his eyes. For a moment, her trembling slowed. She drew a shaky breath. Then her gaze drifted back to the defendant. He hadn't moved, expression carved from stone, but something in that stillness made her shrink as if invisible fingers were tightening around her heart. Rex released a soft, low growl, barely a vibration, but enough to slice through the courtroom's hush. Heads turned. The judge paused mid-sentence. Even the defense attorney stiffened. Officer Grant looked down. Rex wasn't warning randomly. He was responding to the girl's fear, something deeper, something building like pressure beneath glass. Emily's eyes widened. She looked from Rex to the defendant, then to Grant, as if silently pleading for strength. Her breath trembled, chest rising too quickly for a child her age. She leaned into the microphone. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. He said he'd hurt my brother if I talked." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Jurors leaned forward. Someone in the gallery covered their mouth. Even the judge's expression shifted, brows lifting under the weight of realization. The defendant didn't react. Not outwardly, but his jaw tightened, a single muscle ticking beneath the skin. That tiny movement was enough for Rex. His growl deepened, not loud, but unmistakably protective. In one smooth motion, Rex rose and stepped in front of Emily, a guardian shaped by instinct and loyalty. The courtroom froze. Officer Grant didn't pull him back. He didn't need to, because in that moment, everyone understood. Something dangerous, something hidden, had just surfaced. Rex sensed it before anyone else. The child felt it in her bones, and now the entire courtroom felt it too. An invisible thread of threat tightening in the air. The trial that was supposed to be straightforward had just cracked open, and nothing about it would ever be simple again. The judge's gavel struck once, sharp enough to cut through the tension still hanging in the courtroom. "We will take a 15-minute recess." Chairs scraped, whispers rose. A restless movement rippled through the room as people stood to stretch, to talk, to breathe out the heaviness of what Emily had just revealed. But the air didn't lighten. If anything, it grew heavier, thicker, like a fog collecting just above the floor. Officer Grant exhaled slowly. He offered Emily a small nod of encouragement as she was escorted off the stand. She kept her eyes fixed on him and Rex, as if letting them out of her sight for even a moment felt dangerous. Rex sat beside Grant, muscles coiled tighter than before. His gaze tracked every motion in the room, from the defendant whispering harshly to his lawyer, to the officers near the door shifting uncomfortably. Something in the atmosphere was subtly off, like a note played slightly out of tune, wrong enough to unsettle, but not obvious to everyone. Still processing Emily's testimony, Grant placed a hand on Rex's head. "Good job, buddy." Rex didn't respond with the usual softening of his stance. Instead, he remained rigid, eyes locked on the exit doors where a faint buzz of activity echoed from the hallway outside. Grant assumed Rex was reacting to the tension of the moment. It had been a heavy morning for everyone. He didn't think twice when he straightened his uniform and began heading toward the door for a breath of fresh air. He only took 2 steps before Rex lunged forward and planted himself directly in front of him, not aggressively, not loudly, but with an immovable certainty that stunned Grant in place. "Rex?" Grant frowned and tried stepping around him, Rex sidestepped perfectly, blocking him again. Posture low, stance wide. Eyes locked on Grant with a seriousness that made the hairs on his arms rise. Nearby officers paused. A woman clutching her purse raised her eyebrows. "Is he all right?" someone murmured. "Maybe he's overwhelmed," another suggested. "Long morning, long trial." "Or malfunctioning," a security guard muttered under his breath. But Grant knew Rex. This wasn't panic. This wasn't confusion. This was intention. Rex's tail was stiff, his ears pinned, his breath steady, not panting, not frantic. He wasn't reacting to noise or sudden movement. He was reacting to Grant. Rex refused to let him pass. Grant crouched slightly, hand brushing the fur along Rex's neck. "What is it, boy?" Rex flicked his gaze toward the exit, then back to Grant. Again. And again. Each movement sharper, more urgent. It was a silent warning, carved from instinct and training. But Grant, distracted by the whispers and confusion, hesitated. People were watching. Pressure built in the room as if everyone was waiting for Grant to prove that everything was normal, that the dog was just exhausted from the intensity of the morning, that nothing was wrong. That's when he saw her. Emily. Standing near the back of the courtroom, small and still as a shadow, hands clenched tight at her sides. Her eyes weren't on Rex. They were on the exit, the same door Rex was blocking. And the fear in her gaze was different now, not the trembling fear of testifying. This was sharper, deeper, the fear of knowing something terrible was about to happen. When Grant turned fully toward her, she flinched, then quickly scanned the room to make sure no one was watching her too closely. Then she moved. Quiet steps, careful steps, deliberate, the way a child moves when she knows danger is listening. She slipped through the shifting crowd until she reached Grant. Rex allowed her closer, an unspoken permission that struck Grant as unusual. Emily kept her head angled downward, as if terrified of who might see her, and leaned in just slightly. Her voice was barely above a breath. "Don't go out there." Before Grant could ask why, she reached forward with surprising speed and slipped something into the front pocket of his vest. A tiny, folded piece of paper, soft from the warmth of her hand. Then she stepped back, eyes wide with a silent plea he didn't yet understand. Grant frowned, gaze dropping to the crumpled note. He opened it. The handwriting was messy, rushed, almost desperate. 6 words. 6 small, trembling words that dropped like stones straight into his chest. "They are watching you. They will strike when you step outside." At first, everything inside him went silent. Completely, terrifyingly silent. Then the world rushed back in all at once. Every sound sharpened. Every movement felt amplified. The defendant's cold stare, the shuffling of strangers near the door, the uneasy twitch of the security guard's fingers, the faint shadow of someone lingering too close to the frosted glass of the courthouse entrance. Grant's heart hammered against his ribs. His breath tightened. A cold ripple slid down his spine. Rex had known. Rex had felt it. Rex had sensed danger the moment Grant approached the exit. Cut. Dismissed as stress or misbehavior, had been a warning. A desperate, instinct-driven attempt to keep him alive. Grant looked at Emily. Her eyes glistened with fear, her breaths shallow, hands trembling just like they had on the witness stand. But beneath the fear was truth. Raw, urgent truth. She wasn't making this up. She wasn't imagining shadows. She was trying to save him. And Rex had been trying to save him too. Grant swallowed hard, the weight of the moment crushing into him. The realization hit with brutal clarity. He had been seconds away from walking into a trap. Rex's body pressed against his leg, tense and ready. A low rumble vibrated in the dog's chest. Not a warning now, but a confirmation. He knew. He had always known. And Grant, staring at the note, staring at Emily's terrified eyes, understood with absolute certainty. His K-9 partner had just prevented something catastrophic. The moment Officer Grant read the message, everything inside him shifted. His training kicked in instantly. Without raising his voice or drawing attention, he tapped the nearest security officer on the arm and murmured, "We have a threat. Lock the exits, now." The officer's eyes widened, but he didn't question it. Within seconds, quiet movements turned into controlled urgency. Uniforms snapping to attention, radios pressed to ears, courthouse staff ushering civilians back into the courtroom instead of toward the doors. People began to sense something was wrong. A nervous hum spread through the crowd. Emily stood close to Rex, her small hands pressed together tightly as if in prayer. When Grant gently placed a hand on her shoulder, she tensed, but she didn't pull back. "You're coming with us," he whispered. She nodded. No hesitation. No questions. Just fear. And trust. Two officers stepped in to escort her to a side hallway away from the main entrance. Rex watched her the entire time. Eyes sharp, body still coiled like a spring ready to launch. But he didn't follow her. He stayed planted against Grant's leg, refusing to leave him even for a heartbeat. Grant lifted his radio. "Unit 7 requesting immediate..." Static. Harsh, grating static. He adjusted the channel. "Dispatch, do you copy?" More static. Something wasn't right. Radios never all failed at once. Someone was jamming frequencies, or masking a separate channel being used outside. The courthouse's double doors at the far end of the lobby trembled subtly as people moved behind them. Shadows passed across the frosted glass. Not one. Not two more. Too many. Grant's jaw clenched. Rex lowered his body, muscles rippling beneath his fur, ears aimed like twin radars at the entrance. His breathing changed. Slower, more controlled. The way he inhaled when he was tracking something threatening. And then he froze. One intense, rigid stillness that shot adrenaline straight through Grant's chest. He knew that posture. He had seen it in training. He had seen it on deployments. Rex wasn't reacting to movement. He was reacting to scent. Grant knelt quickly. "Rex, what do you smell?" Rex lifted his snout slightly, nostrils flaring. There was no mistaking it. He'd caught it. Gun oil. Not the faint smell officers carried from holstered weapons. This was different. Sharper. Fresh. Mixed with sweat, adrenaline, and the metallic undertone that accompanied high-tension shooters readying for an attack. Grant's stomach dropped. A memory flashed through him. A training day, months ago. A vast field. Targets hidden behind barriers. a sniper dummy placed in the distance, and Rex, just a year old then, lowering his body just like this, tracking not the sight of the threat, but the scent, the subtle chemical trail of gun lubricant used by long-range weapons. Rex wasn't the fastest K9 in the unit, but he was the sharpest, the most precise. He could detect traces other dogs missed: explosives, buried charges, ambush setups, and sniper scent. Grant had seen instructors' faces light up with disbelief when Rex located a hidden rifle nobody else knew was there. This dog, one trainer whispered, was built for saving lives. That same expression now flickered across Grant's face, mixed with dread. Because Rex was in that mode again. The same rigid focus, the same instinct-driven certainty. "Easy, boy," Grant whispered, though his own pulse hammered dangerously. He followed Rex's stare. The glass doors rattled once more. A silhouette paused just beyond them, barely visible through the frosted surface. Then another, and another. Too many for coincidence. Grant tightened his grip on Rex's harness. "Everyone stay back from the entrance," he instructed quietly, moving people toward the interior walls. Rex suddenly leaned forward, as if pulled by an invisible thread. His ears twitched. He went still, again. Grant knew that sign too. The scent was getting closer, more concentrated, directly outside. "Get Emily to the inner corridor," Grant ordered the nearest guard. "Now!" The guard took off without a word. Grant positioned himself slightly to the side of the doorway, using a supporting column as partial cover. He held Rex back with a steady hand, but didn't restrain him. K9 instincts were sometimes seconds faster than human reaction. The lobby fell dead silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. No movement. No voices. No sound. Except Rex's controlled breathing. Then, a flicker. A shift of shadow. A tiny flash of reflected light. Metal catching sunlight through the thin glass. Rex growled. A sharp, low vibration. Grant barely had time to whisper, "Get down," before the world exploded into sound. A single bullet slammed into the glass panel near the top corner with a violent, piercing crack. The sound ricocheted through the lobby like a thunderclap. People screamed. The glass fractured in a spiderweb pattern, shards trembling but not falling. Safety glass barely holding together under the impact. "Sniper!" one officer yelled. "Shots fired!" But Grant didn't need the warning. He had already dropped behind cover, pulling Rex down with him, shielding the dog even as Rex fought instinctively to burst forward and protect him. The shooter's first shot wasn't meant to hit. It was a test shot. A message. A precise warning. Or worse. A measurement. Rex barked once. A sharp, explosive sound of pure alarm. His whole body vibrated with tension. Ready to launch. Ready to defend. Ready to fight. Grant's hand trembled as he clutched the note still in his pocket. "They are watching you. They will strike when you step outside." They weren't just watching. They were already here. Already aiming. Already beginning the attack. And because of Rex, Grant hadn't stepped into the crosshairs. Rex had sensed the danger before anyone else. And now, the silent hunt had begun. Not outside the courthouse, but around it. Closing in. The gunshot changed everything. Panic erupted like a shockwave. Officers scrambled to pull civilians away from the shattered glass, shouting commands, pushing people toward the interior of the courthouse. The once still lobby became a storm of hurried footsteps and trembling voices. Officer Grant didn't waste a second. He grabbed Rex's harness and called out, "Move everyone inside! Do not approach the front entrance!" Chaos surged around them, but Rex was the calm center of it. Alert, focused, every muscle humming with instinctive purpose. Grant scanned the crowd. Emily. She stood pressed against the wall, eyes wide, shaking violently as officers tried to guide her toward a safer corridor. But the moment Rex turned his head, she broke away from their hold and ran straight to him. "Emily!" Grant reached out, steadying her as she crashed into his side. "You have to go with the officers. It's too dangerous." "No!" Her voice cracked. Tears blurred her eyes. "I'm not leaving, Rex!" Rex stepped between them, his body brushing her leg protectively, as if he too refused to let her go. Another officer tried to grab her arm gently, but Rex growled, a warning, not a threat. Grant raised a hand. "Let her stay. She's safer with us right now." The officer hesitated, then nodded and sprinted back toward the civilians. The pounding of rushed footsteps and blaring alarms echoed through the hall. Grant forced himself to think. They couldn't stay in the open, and the assailants, whoever they were, already had the building surrounded. They needed a route no one expected. Time. Rex suddenly jerked forward, pulling against the harness. His nose skimmed the air, then the floor, then followed a line invisible to the human eye. Grant frowned. "Rex, what do you smell?" Rex didn't wait for permission. He tugged again, stronger this time, urging Grant and Emily toward a narrow hallway branching off the main corridor. One few officers ever used. It led to older parts of the courthouse, sections built decades earlier and mostly forgotten now. "He's found something," Grant said under his breath. "Stay close. Don't leave my side." Emily nodded, clutching Rex's fur as they hurried deeper into the dim hallway. Officers near the lobby called after them. "Where are you taking them?" But there was no time to explain. Rex had locked onto something. Grant recognized that laser-focused urgency. It wasn't fear. It wasn't confusion. It was a scent trail. From earlier, the same one that had warned Rex of the ambush before it happened. A scent the attackers didn't realize they had left behind. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead as they ventured down the forgotten corridor. The temperature dropped, the air heavier with dust and age. Old file boxes lined the walls, untouched for years. "I didn't even know this hallway was still open," Emily whispered. Grant kept his voice low. "It's not. At least, not officially." Rex guided them past a rusted janitor's closet, ignoring everything except the scent pulling him forward. Grant felt his chest tighten. He's tracking them, he realized. They were here minutes ago. A distant thud reverberated through the ceiling. Boots, multiple pairs, moving fast. Grant grabbed Emily's hand. "They're coming." Rex broke into a trot, leading them through a narrow double door that opened into an old storage corridor. Dust motes swirled in the stale air. Abandoned equipment cast long shadows across the floor. Rex paused only for a second, sniffing again, confirming direction, then shot a sharp glance at Grant. "This way. Trust me." They moved quickly, weaving around stacks of unused chairs and retired courthouse desks. Emily's breath hitched with each echoing noise above them. Another thud. Closer. Grant looked up at the ceiling tiles, trembling faintly from movement one floor above. They're sweeping the building. Emily's grip tightened painfully around Rex's harness. Her voice shook as she whispered, "Please, please don't let them take Officer Grant. He's the only one who believed me." At those words, Rex stopped, dead still. He turned his head toward her with a slow, deliberate movement. His ears lifted. His eyes, deep, intelligent, unwavering, locked onto hers. It was as if he understood every syllable, as if those words carved something into him, a vow. Before Grant could react, Rex barked. Not a fearful bark, not a reactive bark, but a sharp, decisive, chest-deep bark that echoed through the corridor, a promise forged from loyalty deeper than instinct. "Stay behind me," Grant said, positioning himself between the stairwell door ahead and the children behind him. Children. Because in moments like this, Emily wasn't just a witness. She was a child depending on him for life. Rex pushed forward and nudged the stairwell door with his snout. Grant opened it slowly. The stairwell yawned upward, dim light spilling across cracked concrete steps. The smell of rust and old water pipes thickened the air. "Careful," Grant whispered. "We don't know what—" Footsteps. Directly above. Fast. Closing in. Then another sound. Lighter. Controlled. A single, slow step. Someone waiting. Grant drew his weapon. Rex lowered his body to the ground, hackles rising, a low rumble vibrating through his chest. Emily clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle a cry. A shadow shifted at the top landing. A figure emerged. Face covered by a dark mask, shoulders squared, holding a weapon angled downward as he scanned the stairwell. For a split second, no one moved. Then the attacker's head tilted, just slightly, tracking the sound of Emily's breath. Grant raised his gun. But Rex was faster. With a powerful, explosive launch of muscle and instinct, Rex leaped forward, tearing up the stairs in a blur of black and tan. The attacker barely had time to raise his weapon. Rex collided with him full force, knocking the masked figure backward against the railing with a guttural snarl that echoed off the concrete walls. The fight for their lives had begun, led not by an officer, but by the dog who refused to lose the people he was sworn to protect. The stairwell felt like a battleground long after the masked attacker had been taken down. Shouts echoed through the concrete shaft, officers barking commands, metal clanging as weapons were secured. Grant checked Rex twice over, hands shaking with the adrenaline still coursing through him. But Rex stood tall, unharmed, eyes bright with a protective fire that hadn't dimmed since the ambush began. "Good boy," Grant whispered, exhaling the breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "You saved us again." Rex blinked once, slow, steady, then turned toward Emily. She stood frozen several steps below, pressed tightly against the wall, both hands covering her mouth. Her eyes were wide, not only with fear, but with something heavier, something deeper than the stairwell fight. The moment her gaze met Rex's, her knees buckled. Grant moved instantly. "Emily? Hey, it's okay. You're safe now." He reached to steady her, but Rex beat him to it, nudging his head gently against her arm as if reminding her he was there, alive, watching over her. Two officers approached, one touching Grant's shoulder. "We've secured the stairwell. We need to get her somewhere safer before more of them show up. There are signs this was coordinated." Grant nodded. "Conference room D, inner wing. Minimal windows. Lockable steel door." They moved quickly but carefully, Grant guiding Emily with one hand, while Rex walked pressed against her side. The courthouse had transformed into a maze of alarms, flashing lights, and emergency protocols. Finally, they reached the secluded conference room. Small, windowless, quiet. The door shut behind them, the lock sliding into place with a final, grounding click. Something inside Emily snapped. Her shoulders shook first, then her breath. Sharp, ragged, spiraling. She dropped into a chair like a marionette whose strings had been cut. Her hands gripped the table edge until her knuckles turned white. "Emily," Grant said gently, sitting across from her. "You can breathe. You're safe here. We've got you." Rex padded forward, settled beside her knees, and lowered his head onto her legs. That soft gesture, so simple, so deeply comforting, broke her open. Tears spilled. "It's all my fault," she whispered. Grant leaned forward. "No, none of this is your fault." She shook her head violently. "You don't understand. I should have said something earlier. I should have told someone." Rex didn't move, didn't shift, just held her gaze, grounding her. "Emily," Grant said softly, "whatever you've been carrying, you can tell us now. No judgment, no fear. We're here to help." Silence stretched except for her uneven breaths. Then she inhaled, shuddering, and began. They've been following us. For months." Her voice wavered. "At first I thought my mom was imagining things. The same car at the grocery store, men standing near the school fence, just staring. My mom reported it, but nothing happened. They always left before police arrived." Emily wiped her eyes. "Then one day, one of them came to our house. He didn't come inside. He just stood at the end of the driveway, smiling. Time passed 200 mo's. My brother saw him too." She swallowed hard. "They told my brother, if I talked, if I said anything about what I saw that night, they would hurt him." Her hands clenched tightly. "He's only 7. He still sleeps with his dinosaur blanket. He doesn't know how to be afraid yet." So I had to be afraid for him. Grant felt his heart crack. Childhood fear tangled with responsibility far too heavy for someone so young. Emily looked up, guilt darkening her eyes. "I wanted to tell you sooner. I really did. When you interviewed me, when you asked if someone threatened me, I almost said yes." She closed her eyes. "But then I saw the man watching from the hallway window, and I thought, if I told the truth, you'd get hurt too." Grant took a slow breath. "Emily, listen to me. What you did wasn't wrong. You were trying to protect the people you love. That's not weakness. That's courage." Emily's lips trembled. "But you almost got shot. Because of me." "No," Grant said firmly. "Because of them. Not you." Rex nudged her knee again, and she placed a trembling hand on his head. Her shoulders lowered just a fraction. "I heard them this morning," she whispered. Grant stilled. "Who?" "The men." She curled her fingers into Rex's fur. They were behind the parking garage wall when we arrived. They didn't see me. I hid behind a trash bin. They said Officer Grant needed to go first, so the message would be clear. She looked up, anguish shining in her eyes. They were talking about you. Grant's breath caught. Rex lifted his head slightly, sensing the shift. Emily burst into tears again. I should have told you. I should have said something. But I froze. I was scared. She pressed a hand over her heart. I was so scared. Grant leaned forward. Emily, can I tell you something? She hesitated, then nodded. You didn't freeze. You survived. And you told me in time. You saved my life, Emily. You saved a lot of people today. She looked confused. But if I told you earlier, none of this would have happened. Danger was coming whether you spoke or not, Grant said gently. But because you did speak, we're still here. Rex shifted, lowering his head onto her lap. Emily let out a broken sob, burying her hands in the thick fur between his ears. He's the only one who believed me, she whispered into Rex's fur. You're the only ones who didn't look at me like I was making it up. Slowly, her breathing steadied, guided by the rise and fall of Rex's chest. Then she lifted her head, tears clinging to her lashes. I saw them, she whispered. This morning, the men who shot at you. I saw them before anyone else, but I didn't say anything because I thought maybe they wouldn't really do it. Maybe it would all just go away. A painful silence followed. Grant reached across the table, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Thank you for telling me now. This changes everything, and it helps us stop them. Emily looked down at Rex, perfectly still, eyes closed, head resting in her lap like a living shield. Rex, she whispered, voice raw, please don't let them hurt him. Officer Grant, he's the only one who listened to me. Rex opened his eyes, and in them was something fierce, unwavering, ancient. Loyalty shaped by instinct. Devotion forged through danger. Love strengthened by survival. Rex lifted his head and pressed it firmly against her chest. A vow made without words. No one would touch Grant. No one would touch her, not while he was breathing. In that moment, child, man, and dog were bound not by circumstance, but by trust. And trust was something no attacker, no threat, no darkness could ever break. The conference room door opened with a sharp, echoing click, snapping Grant out of the quiet moment he'd been guarding around Emily. 2 officers stepped inside, their expressions tight with urgency. One held a tablet loaded with security footage. We found something, he said. Footage from the north stairwell cameras. You'll want to see this. Grant motioned for Emily to stay seated beside Rex while he crossed the room. The officer played the video. Even on the small screen, the images were chilling. 3 men, faces obscured, moved through the basement level at dawn. Hours before the courthouse opened, one placed something inside a storage closet. Another checked the service tunnel door. The third walked the hallway, touching every door handle as he passed, including the one outside the courtroom. Grant's throat tightened. Timestamps match? Down to the minute Emily said she saw them. Emily flinched at her name, hugging Rex closer. Grant looked at the shaking child, then back at the screen. They planned this inside out, he said. Not intimidation, Infiltration. Exactly, the officer replied. And we have zero idea where they are now. The room chilled. Emily wasn't the only one trembling anymore. Grant turned off the tablet, mind racing. The attackers had moved like they already knew the blind spots. Service tunnels, maintenance shafts, rooftops. And every minute they stayed hidden escalated the danger. We need eyes, Grant muttered. We need to find their trail before they double back. Senses something. As if summoned by the thought, Rex lifted his head from Emily's lap. His posture shifted. Alert, focused, ears angled forward. Grant noticed immediately. You feel something, boy? Rex moved toward Grant, nudging his hand. Understanding flashed through Grant like lightning. Give me the shell casing, he ordered. The officer handed over a plastic evidence bag containing the sniper's bullet fragment. The smell inside would be faint. But for Rex, faint was enough. Grant knelt beside him. Rex, track. Rex inhaled, and something in him changed, like gears locking, like a machine shifting from idle to full power. His muscles stiffened, his eyes narrowed, his head lowered. He's got it, Grant breathed. An officer frowned. Inside the building, K9 units don't usually track indoor air patterns. They scatter too easily. Grant shot him a look. Rex isn't usual. Move. Rex started walking, slow at first, snout sweeping the floor, then lifting to taste the air. Emily stood quickly. Wait! Don't leave me! Grant turned. Emily, you stay here. No! Her voice cracked. Rex won't leave me. I'm going with him. And she was right. Rex had already turned back, placing himself protectively between them. Grant sighed. Fine, but stay close. Rex resumed tracking, leading them into deeper corridors. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The air grew colder, heavier. They passed storage rooms, janitorial closets, rusted maintenance doors no one had opened in years. Emily clutched Grant's sleeve with one hand and Rex's harness with the other. It feels like no one's been down here for years, she whispered. Exactly why they chose it, Grant replied. Rex stopped at a locked utility door. He sniffed the bottom edge, then the door frame. Slow, deliberate, focused. Then he growled, deep, low, dangerous. Someone was here, Grant whispered. With help, he forced the door open. A long service tunnel stretched ahead. Narrow concrete walls, exposed pipes rattling overhead. The smell of oil, metal, and dust thickened the air. Rex stepped inside immediately. He tracked faster now, pulling against the harness, nails clicking sharply on the floor. Where's he going? An officer asked. He's following the same guy who planted the device this morning, Grant said. Same scent, same trail. Rex sniffed the floor, then the vents. He barked, sharp, urgent. Someone opened the vents recently, Grant said. They're moving between floors. Rex rounded a corner and froze. His stance lowered, fur raised. Grant raised a hand. Everyone stopped. Rex's nose pointed toward a dim alcove, where a large maintenance cart sat parked. That shouldn't be here, Grant murmured. The cart was old, covered with a tarp, but Rex wasn't reacting to how it looked. He was reacting to what it hid. He stepped forward, growling deeper, louder, more urgent. Grant reached for the tarp. Rex barked sharply. Not a bark, a warning. Emily covered her ears. Rex stared at Grant, eyes wide, a small whine vibrating in his throat. Not fear, not confusion, urgency, desperation. Grant pulled his hand back. Okay, okay, he murmured. We'll do it your way. He signaled the bomb squad officer. The man scanned the cart. The device beeped, then beeped again, then screamed. Oh my God, the officer whispered. High-density metal, wiring, multiple triggers. It's a multi-charge explosive. Emily gasped, stumbling backward. Grant caught her. Second stage attack, Grant said, voice trembling with horror. They weren't just trying to shoot me. They were going to blow the entire tunnel system. Half the floor, maybe more, the bomb squad officer whispered. Rex barked again, pacing between Grant and the bomb, trying to push him back. Grant's throat tightened. Rex didn't just track the attackers. He didn't just find a path. He found the bomb, minutes before it could have detonated. Good boy, Grant whispered, voice thick. You just saved the entire courthouse. Emily threw her arms around Rex's neck, burying her face in his fur. I knew you would protect us, she whispered. I knew it. Rex pressed his head against her chest, comforting her, even now, even with danger still lurking somewhere in the building. Officers worked frantically, securing the tunnel, calling disposal teams, alerting the upper floors. Grant stood over Rex and Emily, heart pounding with the weight of what almost happened. For the first time since the chaos began, he felt a sliver of hope. Because Rex wasn't just tracking danger. He was staying one step ahead of it. And that meant, for the first time, they had a fighting chance. The moment the bomb squad confirmed the explosive device, the courthouse burst into organized panic. Officers sprinted through hallways, radios crackling with instructions, alarms blaring overhead. Red emergency lights washed the walls in pulsing, frantic waves, turning everything into a flickering nightmare. Evacuate all upper floors. Seal basement entrances. Priority protection for key witnesses. Grant grabbed Emily's arm, guiding her behind him as officers pushed civilians toward emergency exits. Rex stayed glued to her side, body angled outward, shielding her from the rushing crowd. His tail stiff, ears pinned forward, ready, alert, tense. Emily's tiny fingers clung to his harness, trusting him with something deeper than fear, something like faith. Suddenly, the PA system sputtered, then died. Only alarms remained. Grant's stomach dropped. They weren't just being hunted. They were being cut off. An officer rushed toward them. Grant! Movement on the security feed. Basement corridor, multiple hostiles. They breached the west stairwell. Emily froze. Rex growled, deep, throaty, vibrating down the hall. Grant nodded. We move now. Service tunnel. Follow Rex's lead. They pushed deeper into the courthouse, toward restricted maintenance corridors. Pipes rattled overhead as hurried footsteps shook the concrete beneath them. Emily stumbled, but Rex nudged her forward, steadying her without slowing. Just as they reached the service tunnel entrance, a deafening boom shook the floor. Dust rained from the ceiling. Emily screamed, ducking. Grant pulled her close. That wasn't the bomb, he said, voice sharp with dread. That was a breach. The attackers were inside. Stay with me, Grant insisted. But Rex was already sprinting, barking urgently toward the tunnel door. Grant shoved the heavy metal door open. The tunnel beyond was long, narrow, lit only by flickering emergency bulbs. Steam rose from ruptured vents, the smell of metal, oil, fear. Something clattered farther down. Footsteps? Debris? Impossible to tell. "Stay behind Rex," Grant ordered. "Don't let go." They ran deeper, boots splashing through puddles. Shouts erupted behind them, growing louder, closer. "They're here! Run! Go!" Emily whimpered, but kept running. Grant pressed her forward. "Don't look back!" The tunnel split. Rex didn't hesitate. He darted left, barking once. Grant followed, until smoke billowed from the opposite direction. Thick, black, crawling like a living thing. "Smoke grenades," Grant coughed. "Move faster." Voices echoed behind the fog. "Find the girl." "Take the officer out." Emily's whole body trembled. Rex roared, a ferocious bark that shook the metal walls. They reached a wider section, crates stacked high around them. Smoke followed, swallowing the path. Rex froze. Grant skidded beside him. "Why'd you stop, boy?" A sound cut him off. Click. A safety being switched off. Instinct roared. Grant grabbed Emily and shoved her behind the crates. Just as gunfire exploded. Bang! 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 Splinters flew. Emily screamed. Rex launched, shoving Emily further into cover before wheeling back to Grant. Shadows advanced in the smoke. Grant fired back blindly. A muzzle flash blinked. A shot rang out. Pain ripped through his arm, hot and blinding. Emily shrieked, "Officer Grant!" "I'm okay," he lied, wavering on his feet. More orders from the attackers. "Move in! Take them now!" Grant raised his gun, but his balance faltered. And that was all Rex needed. With a primal, ancient sound, Rex hurled himself forward, placing his entire body between Grant and the advancing shadows. Another shot fired. Grant saw the flash, saw the angle, and knew he couldn't move in time. But Rex did. The dog lunged sideways into Grant's torso, slamming him to the ground. Just as the bullet grazed Grant's ribs instead of piercing them, Rex covered him instantly, refusing to move. Grant gasped. "Rex, no!" Rex growled, anchoring himself over Grant's chest. Boots thundered behind them. "Drop it! Get down!" Gunfire erupted from both sides. Emily screamed, burying her face in her hands. Smoke, bullets, shouting. Then, slowly, painfully, the shooting stopped. "All suspects down. Sector secured." Grant collapsed back, chest heaving. Rex finally lifted his weight, but stayed pressed against him, refusing to move more than an inch. Emily crawled out from behind the crates and threw her arms around both of them. Grant bleeding, Rex trembling with adrenaline, Emily sobbing into his fur. Grant wrapped his good arm around them. "It's okay. It's over. You're safe." But Rex didn't relax. His ears twitched. His eyes narrowed toward the far end of the tunnel. Grant followed his gaze and saw it. A faint, blinking red light. Not gunfire. Not smoke. Something else, something worse. The danger wasn't over. Not yet. The blinking red light pulsed like a heartbeat at the far end of the tunnel. Faint but impossible to ignore, casting an eerie glow against the concrete walls as smoke thinned just enough for Grant to see it clearly. Pain burned along his arm and side where the bullets had grazed him, but a colder dread took over as his brain caught up with what his eyes were seeing. That wasn't equipment. It wasn't a warning alarm. It was a trigger. "Everyone back!" he shouted, voice hoarse. "Rex, heal! Move!" But he was already too late. The world snapped into a white-hot roar as a second explosive detonated, not a full-force blast like the primary device they had disarmed earlier, but a cruel, partial explosion, powerful enough to rip through supports, shatter fixtures, and send shockwaves down the narrow passage. The tunnel seemed to heave alive. The floor bucked beneath them. The lights burst in a shower of sparks. A wall of hot air slammed into them like a speeding truck. Emily was thrown backward, hitting the floor with a cry. Officers stumbled. Grant's feet slipped, and the already wounded arm gave in as he pitched forward, vision scattering into fragments of concrete, light, and noise. In that split second, as heavy steel pipes above them vibrated loose, as fractured concrete split from the ceiling, as jagged debris began to fall in deadly chunks, Rex moved. He didn't hesitate. He didn't flinch. He didn't calculate odds or wait for a command. The German shepherd launched himself at Grant with the full force of his body, slamming into the officer's chest and shoving him sideways into a shallow recess in the tunnel wall. Grant felt the impact knock the breath out of him, ribs screaming in protest, but Rex's weight pressed him down just as a massive piece of ceiling crashed exactly where he had been standing 1 heartbeat before. The sound was deafening. Concrete smashing against concrete, metal twisting and clanging, the tunnel coughing out dust and smoke like a wounded beast. For a moment, everything was a blur of gray and ringing silence. Grant lay stunned, dust settling over his face, the taste of grit in his mouth. His brain struggled to reorder sound, sight, movement. Then awareness slammed back in. Emily's voice, high, broken, terrified. "Rex!" Grant tried to sit up, but a sharp spike of pain shot through his side. Something heavy pinned his legs. He blinked hard, clearing dust from his eyes. The world slowly came into focus, and his heart froze. The floor where he'd just been standing was buried under a mound of debris. Broken concrete blocks, chunks of ceiling, twisted metal pipes, and somewhere beneath it all, a patch of fur. "No," Grant whispered. "No, no, no, Rex!" He shoved at the rubble, trapping his legs, ignoring the fire in his arm. "Help me!" he barked. "He's under there!" Emily crawled toward the collapsed section, face streaked with dirt and tears. "Rex!" her voice cracked. "Get him out! Please, get him out!" Officers rushed in, some still coughing from the blast. Together they heaved pieces of shattered concrete aside, rolled broken pipes away, cleared twisted bits of rebar and fractured tiles. Dust rose in clouds, making everyone's eyes water. But they didn't stop. Grant dug like a man possessed, fingers tearing, nails breaking, blood smearing across stone as he clawed at anything keeping him from reaching his partner. "Come on, buddy," he rasped. "Come on! You're not done, not yet. Stay with me." Emily sobbed openly now, her small hands desperately lifting smaller chunks of debris despite the weight. "Rex, please, please don't be gone. You promised. You promised." For a terrifying moment, nothing moved under the rubble. No sound came from beneath. Only the groan of the damaged tunnel and the frantic breaths of the people digging. Then someone shouted, "I've got him! I feel fur!" Hope exploded through Grant's chest. "Careful! Watch the weight above him!" They cleared the last few pieces with as much precision as panic allowed. Then he saw it. Rex's paw, limp at first, then twitching. A wet, choking cough broke the air. Rex's head emerged, muzzle covered in dust, eyes squeezed shut, one ear matted with blood. The officers pulled debris away from his hind legs, revealing deep bruising and a painful twist in one back leg. He looked broken, battered, but breathing. Time 900 M's to alive. That's it, buddy. That's it. I've got you. Grant slid forward, cupping Rex's face gently, wiping dust from his eyes. Rex's eyelids fluttered open, dazed, but burning with life. The dog coughed, shook his head, then tried to stand. His hind leg buckled and he sank down with a whine that stabbed through Grant's chest. Emily burst into tears. "He's hurt! Officer Grant! He's really hurt!" "I know," Grant said softly. "I know, sweetheart. But he's here. That's what matters." Rex tried again to stand, body trembling from shock and pain. Grant laid a hand on his neck. "Easy. It's okay. You did enough. You saved me." But Rex didn't understand the word enough. It had never existed in his vocabulary. He had been trained for moments like this, to keep moving, keep protecting, keep fighting, even when his body begged him to stop. The German shepherd pushed through the pain, scraping the floor as he found his footing. He staggered once, twice, then lifted his head. His limp was obvious, but his eyes were sharp again, focused, listening, watching. Somewhere in the distance of the tunnel, faint but unmistakable, echoed the sound of retreating footsteps. One attacker, maybe two. The blast hadn't taken them all. Whoever set that second explosive had not counted on Rex surviving, had not counted on the dog they thought was merely an obstacle becoming their executioner by testimony. Rex stiffened, head turning slowly toward the source of the fading sound. His nostrils flared, testing the smoky air, filtering past out the dust and burning metal until he caught it. The same scent he had been tracking all along. Gun oil, sweat, adrenaline, the signature of the last man trying to escape judgment. Grant followed Rex's gaze and felt the realization slam into him. "The last one," he muttered. "He's still in here. He's running for an exit." An officer by his side shook his head. "We should get you both out of here. You're wounded. The dog's injured. The tunnel is unstable. If he gets away," Grant cut in, eyes locked on the darkness ahead, "he comes back. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but he comes back, and he finishes what he started." The officer faltered, torn between protocol and the hard truth in Grant's voice. Before he could argue again, Rex took a step forward, then another. His limp was pronounced, every movement labored, but he didn't slow. He growled low in his throat, a promise to the darkness ahead. Pain would not stop him. Fear would not slow him. Not while danger still breathed in the same air as the people he had sworn to protect. Emily reached out and grabbed a handful of Rex's fur, tears still streaking her face. "You can't go," she whimpered. "You'll get hurt more. You don't have to be brave anymore." Rex paused. Above them, officers reported in over the restored radio channels. Explosives contained, attackers captured, courthouse fully secured. But down here, in the dim light of the service tunnel, the true declaration of safety wasn't spoken into radios or logged into official reports. It was written in the way a wounded dog stood tall despite his injuries, in the way a frightened child finally allowed herself to breathe, and in the way an officer held his partner close, knowing that no medal, no commendation, no ceremony could ever fully honor what had just been given in the darkness below the courthouse. The quiet, unwavering sacrifice of a heart that never hesitated to protect. The courthouse felt different when the doors opened again. Not safer. No. The fear of what had almost happened still clung to the marble floors and echoed through the hallways. But it felt steadier, calmer, grounded by the knowledge that the worst was finally over. Officers stood guard at every corner, more than before, faces stern and alert. The air smelled faintly of dust and disinfectant from the tunnel collapse. Inside the courtroom, sunlight streamed through high windows, warming the wooden benches and illuminating the worried faces slowly taking their seats again. People whispered softly, glancing around as if afraid the shadows might still hide danger. Yet the center of the room felt solid, held together by two figures who had become symbols of survival: Officer Grant and Rex. Grant's arm was wrapped in a firm bandage beneath his uniform. His ribs were taped under his vest. Every movement sent a dull ache through his body. But he stood tall, chin lifted, posture steady. And beside him, lying down but alert, was Rex. Bandages around his hind leg and shoulder, a shaved patch revealing bruised skin. Breath a little slower, but his eyes, alive, focused, bright. Each time someone entered, Rex's ears perked, tracking them until satisfied they posed no threat. When he finally settled, his head rested against Grant's boot, a silent declaration. I am here. I survived, and nothing will touch him on my watch. The judge entered, robes flowing, face stern yet softer than before. Even he had been shaken. Given the events earlier today, he began, voice echoing gently, I want to express gratitude to law enforcement for neutralizing the threat. His eyes flicked to Rex, and to those who made it possible for us to be standing here now. The bailiff stepped forward. Your Honor, the court calls back to the stand Emily Turner. The side doors opened. Emily stepped in. But she wasn't the trembling, terrified child from that morning. She walked with small, determined steps, back straight. Chin raised just enough to show courage. The same oversized sweater, dust still clinging to it from the tunnels. Hair messy, eyes red from crying. But inside them, fire, strength. When she spotted Grant and Rex, she gave a tiny nod, more to herself than to anyone else. She was ready. Grant rested a hand on Rex's back. She's got this, he whispered. Rex lifted his head and gave a soft chuff. Agreement. Emily reached the stand. The bailiff adjusted the microphone. The judge leaned forward gently. Emily, do you feel ready to continue? She looked at Grant, then at Rex. Rex's tail thumped once, slow and reassuring. Emily took a deep breath. Yes, Your Honor. I want to finish. Her voice, soft, but clear. Emily, the prosecutor said softly, earlier you told us the defendant threatened your brother. Do you understand the importance of telling the truth now? She nodded. I do. Then please, tell the court what really happened. Emily swallowed, then spoke. I saw him that night, the night of the fire. Gasps rippled across the room. Grant felt Rex tense. I woke up because my brother couldn't sleep, Emily continued. The window was open, and I saw a man outside, her gaze fixed on the defendant. The same man sitting right there. She described the gasoline cans, the lighter, the argument with the store owner. Her hands gripped the stand. He saw me looking. He said if I ever told anyone, he'd hurt my brother. hurt my family. Tears shimmered but didn't fall. And then he said Officer Grant was next because Officer Grant believed me. Emily lifted her chin. I was scared. I thought telling the truth would make things worse. She looked at Rex. But Rex saved Officer Grant. And he saved me too. So I'm not scared anymore. I'm telling the truth now. Silence. Complete silence. Even the air held its breath. The judge leaned back, absorbing every word. Emily's testimony was not just brave, it was undeniable. Thank you, Emily, the judge finally said. Your courage is remarkable. She stepped down. Grant moved toward her. Rex stood, slowly, painfully, and limped to her side. Emily wrapped her arms around Rex's neck. You did it, she whispered. We did it. Grant rested a hand on her back. I'm proud of you, kiddo. Emily sniffed. You kept me safe. Grant shook his head gently. Rex kept all of us safe. When they returned to their seats, the judge cleared his throat, but his voice carried something deeper now. Before we proceed, he said, there is something that must be acknowledged. He looked at Rex. Everyone followed his gaze. Today, because of extraordinary instincts, bravery, and loyalty, a tragedy was prevented. Rex tilted his head, listening. Officer Grant, the judge continued, your partner has demonstrated a level of courage beyond duty, beyond training, beyond expectation. This dog prevented a tragedy today. The court owes him its gratitude. For a heartbeat. No one moved. Then the courtroom erupted into quiet, reverent applause. Officers stood. Jurors wiped their eyes. Civilians nodded with admiration. Even the guards softened. Rex stepped closer to Grant, leaning his weight against him. Unsure why people were clapping, but trusting it must be safe if Grant was calm. Emily cupped Rex's face. They're clapping for you, she whispered. Rex blinked, then nudged her cheek. Warmth settled over the courtroom, gentle, healing, whole. Grant looked down at Rex, voice catching softly. Good boy, he murmured. My hero. Rex closed his eyes, leaning fully into Grant's leg, choosing that spot to rest. Not because he was tired, but because he knew, for the first time today, they were safe. The courthouse doors hadn't looked peaceful all day. Hours earlier, they were the threshold of danger, where shadows waited, where bullets flew, where a child's trembling voice warned of death hiding just beyond the sunlight. But now, as the final session came to a close, and the case was sealed forever by Emily's brave testimony, those same doors stood open, washed in a warm glow that spilled across the floor like a long-awaited promise. The late afternoon sun painted golden streaks over the marble steps. Officers lined both sides of the exit, not in rigid formation, but gathered out of respect. Dust still clung to some of their uniforms from the basement battle. Others bore new scrapes and bruises, but every face shared the same expression: solemn pride, quiet reverence, gratitude. And every pair of eyes, without exception, rested on Rex. The German shepherd walked slowly beside Officer Grant, limping slightly but upright, chest forward, ears alert. His bandages stood out starkly against his fur, reminders of everything he had endured. There was no weakness in his steps, only dignity. a calm, steady strength radiating with every movement. Grant walked with matching slowness, mindful of his injured ribs, but even more mindful of the dog at his side. His hand rested on Rex's harness, not to support Rex, but because it felt right. Deeply, emotionally right, to walk forward together. Time China. Emily walked on Rex's other side, her small fingers lightly touching his back, as if afraid that letting go would make him disappear. The officers parted as the trio approached the doorway. Outside, more officers waited. Courthouse staff, emergency responders, even a few civilians who had chosen to stay. And when they saw Rex step into the sunlight, a hush fell over the crowd. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Then, slowly, they began to clap. Not loudly, not triumphantly, but softly. Like a soldier returning from war, a ripple of heartfelt appreciation flowed through the crowd, warm enough to challenge even the sun. Rex paused at the top of the steps, ears flicking as he tilted his head. He didn't understand applause. Not really. But he understood tone, kindness, gratitude, respect. So he stood quiet and tall, letting the sunlight catch the edges of his fur, illuminating him like a portrait carved from courage. Emily stepped in front of him, eyes shining with tears that didn't fall. She placed a tiny hand on Rex's head, fingers brushing gently between his ears. "You saved him. You saved us all." Rex lowered his head, leaning into her touch, a silent and steady acceptance. Grant swallowed hard, then reached into his vest pocket, a velvet box. Emily gasped softly. "You earned this," Grant whispered. He knelt, wincing, and opened the box. Inside, a gleaming badge, polished silver, engraved with the emblem of valor. A badge reserved for those who crossed the line between duty and sacrifice, not because they were asked, but because they refused not to. Grant clipped the badge onto Rex's harness. Sunlight struck it instantly, sending a silver glint dancing across the courtyard. Gasps rose. Officers wiped their eyes. "Rex," Grant said softly, voice thick, "by the authority of the department, and by the gratitude of every life you protected today, you are hereby awarded the Badge of Valor." Emily couldn't hold herself back. She threw her arms around Rex's neck, sobbing into his fur. And Rex lifted his muzzle and nudged her cheek. Soft, tender, reassuring. A simple message. "You're safe now. I'll always protect you." The officers grew quiet as the trio stood at the top of the steps. Grant with his bandaged arm, Emily with her trembling bravery, Rex with his new badge shining like a beacon. Sunlight wrapped around them, turning the moment into something almost cinematic. A living portrait of survival. A testimony of loyalty. Emily slipped her hand into Grant's. Rex walked on her other side, matching their pace. Limping, but refusing to be carried. The crowd parted, letting them pass like heroes returning from battle. And together, man, dog, and child, they walked forward into the light. In the end, stories like Rex's remind us why dogs touch our hearts the sound way they do. Their loyalty isn't loud. Their love isn't complicated. They simply stand by us, through fear, through danger, through every moment that tests who we are. German Shepherds especially give their whole heart without asking for anything in return. And if you've ever loved a dog, you know that bond isn't just companionship, it's family. If this story stirred something in you, and you'd like to deepen the bond you share with your own dog, there's a resource I keep tucked gently away, something thoughtful, helpful, and kind. I'll leave it here for you to explore whenever you're ready. No pressure, just a friendly suggestion from someone who understands what dogs mean to us. And who knows, maybe it'll bring you and your four-legged friend a little closer too.